Hi, Max.
Ton, don't be a dick.
Okay, but it's my passion.
So hope you once time you gonna show me how you shooting myself.
Shoot. I felt really good.
Can you see
In America.
in Russian? Yeah, you can turn on. We can start. So
Okay, we're all good to go. Go ahead, Max.
yeah, nice to see you again, Ton.
Hi, Max.
How are you doing? Tell me how are you doing?
Well, it's I'm happy to be on Earth today. I can't say for every day, but it's very hot. It's hot and beautiful out in Athens. So getting going. I've got my coffee, just getting my head going, and ready for your questions.
Cool. Yeah, it's also probably gonna be hot in as well. So let's warm up a little bit, and
Okay.
I want you tell you about yourself. Where were you born? Where do you live now? And what do you do for a living? Tell us.
Okay, good questions. Well, I'm from New York City. I was born in New York City. I grew up most of my life in America and most of that in New York. I currently live in Athens, Greece. I moved here about 10 years ago and met my future wife and stayed. Like Odysseus, got stuck here. And so for a living, I teach. I do education. I teach sometimes children, and I also teach ESL, English as a Second Language, to adults, sometimes children, but mostly adults. And other than that, I also love films and reading, so it's my passion. That's a little picture of myself.
Yeah, and it's probably why we got here. I mean, today it's not just a kind of interview, like the first interview I believe for yourself and for myself as well, but probably the topic that like the main topic of this interview is language learning. So I know that you've got a couple of languages in your arsenal, and so what and how many languages do you speak?
Oh, good question. Right. Well, of course, English is my native language, my first language. Greek is my second language. It's my mother's language, so I learned it from home. I didn't do a formal, training or education. But lately, I'm working on my Greek because I want to improve it. So it's doing like all the other language learners, trying to improve my second language. And I also, French is my third language, so it's not as, let's say English is my strongest, Greek is between, and then French is my third language. So, yeah, so I know the struggle of language learning, and I'm, I know the difficulty, and I can talk a lot about that.
So like two foreign language, French and Greek.
Right.
And we probably I know probably in English is the same word, like we can call you like polyglot, who speaks a couple of no.
Yeah, I think yes. I think like if you're doing two languages, they say bilingual, and if you know three or more, yeah, you could say polyglot. But I'm not a super strong polyglot, like 20 languages. But I would say only that French is probably the language that I learned more formally. Oh, and I forgot to mention I also studied Russian, but I have forgotten most of it.
Yeah.
So that's another project that I would like to.
Yeah, and there is probably another question I'm gonna ask you. It's like two languages. Do you want to learn more? And yeah, Russian. You forgot to tell about Russian, maybe Russian or some
Right.
other languages you gonna learn.
Well, I think for the moment I want to improve the languages I did learn. So I'm not trying to learn a new language, but I feel that I want to at least, you know, close the circle. We say sometimes in English, close the circle with some, with my Greek, make it stronger. With French, maybe a little better. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, get back some of the Russian that I forgot. So
Yeah, but it's never gonna be enough,
no,
never gonna be satisfied with your language level.
no, that's
Always there is something you gonna grow up in.
That's true. That's true, right?
And yeah, so what role these languages play in your life? I mean, the languages, foreign languages, and was there any particular motivation once you start each of them? So why did you learn them?
Well, like I said, Greek was just learned from my environment, from my home. So it wasn't. I didn't go to school for Greek. I didn't do language training in Greek. I mean, not as a child. So French was more. Russian and French were more formal education, language learning. And what is my goal? Is of course to really make these languages a little more intimate, closer, and richer, so
Mhm.
that I can really interact. I think it's again when it's more. So sometimes it's a personal project. I mean, Greek is not a language that's millions. I mean, it's a smaller group of people that speak Greek, but it's a personal challenge. And French again is a little more personal, but also reading. And Russian, Russian, a lot of people speak Russian, so that would be good to to learn. To improve that. But again, you can't do everything at once, at one time. But that's sort of personal goals for the moment.
Yeah, so why I'm asking all this question is because it's not a secret. I already told you that I'm gonna learn a new language,
Right?
start learning
I
a new
remember.
language, and it's really doesn't matter which one exactly because there is another thing, an issue I would say that I faced once I tried to begin learning from scratch. It's since English is actually the only foreign language I know and speak, and it's completely kind of different path how I learn it, and it's probably not the best way to learn language. From school, it's the path is very very long, and it's obviously could be much faster and more efficiently.
So you mean it was a more traditional language learning path, like in school, English classes in school and in university, and
Yeah, I would say that it's probably just a bad example, how you can learn language. And here I'm trying to, to define a new path, a new, more efficient, more, just a different one. I don't want to, spend 10 years, or 11, probably it was 9 years in school, then a couple of years in university, and
Right.
because I believe that the most progress I made like last probably year or something less when I actually started my job as a software engineer. So my next question is: there any strategy you have once you start learning a new language? Maybe a roadmap, a plan, or any tips you have?
Right. Well, that's a
You can
great
share with
question
me.
because I think when people are learning, like my English learners, I prefer the word learner rather than student because student makes it seem like you're in a school, a class, and kind of more traditional. But a learner, because we're always learning. The part of the advantage of today and the disadvantage is, the advantage is there's so many choices, so many different ways that you can approach language learning or any learning, but let's say language learning. And the disadvantage is the same problem. There's so many approaches, so many methods, so many ways that you become, I think, sometimes overwhelmed and dizzy.
Yeah.
And I think I really find, I think about this a lot, again, not only for language learning, but for learning. That's really the only strategy, the only method, the only real way is do it a lot and do it with desire. It's the only way. I mean, if it's words you have to learn, okay, you can do it in 1 minute, you can do it in 10 minutes. So I find a lot of times this methods and strategies often create too much of a restriction, and I think language learning is a lot like learning a sport or something physical where you just have to do it a lot until you start to feel comfortable. You find your own way that makes you feel good when you're doing it. Because if you feel bad and tired when you're doing it, you will learn nothing and you will want to stop. In your mind, you will say, I want to stop this. It's not nice. So right now, for the moment, I can't say, you've had a lot of success. So I could, like to ask you how you have changed your way of learning English, and you've moved, you've worked on your English a lot. So what do you feel, Max, about your English learning?
Yeah, and honestly, like yesterday, I was a little bit preparing for this question because, of course, I'm asking this question you, but also it's also nice to have kind of discussion, not only getting your answers. So, and I have also like the similar thoughts that just you said, because I think that the most important thing in learning language and probably in learning anything, it's to be really interested in it and in learning language. And it's probably like the interested should be there, on the place, and also it is probably, if not the same, but similar to your motivation. So if you're interested in it means you're motivated. So, and of course, in real life, it's not always like that, and we don't always learn something we want, but probably more often, let's say, what our boss want us to know, but for a little while, let's forget about this reality and imagine that in our world we learn only something we want, and so jump into that the learning process.
I wanted to add that one of the experiences that taught me a lot about learning or learning something is one time when I was studying for a summer in Paris, and I was hanging out around this art center called the Pompidou Center. But it has a big square, and people hang out.
Does it Does it mean something? Pompidou?
It's the name of a man. It's the name of a man,
Okay,
and
because
they built this very modern building that many French people at first hated because it was completely different from the other buildings. But it has a big square, and it's people go there and hang out and play music, and so and still today it's like that. But one day I was there and I saw this young guy. He was juggling, and he had he had a little a basket for you could give him money, and he was doing 3 balls, 4 balls, 5 balls. And it was he did different things, tricks, and I started talking to him, and because I was going almost often, and I finally we started talking, and he decided to teach me a little about juggling, and in fact he gave me he gave me some lessons, and he said that in fact he was a musician, but he taught himself juggling just for fun, and then he does it as just a fun thing to do in the summer. But he says it was a good lesson for learning in general. Like the whole process of learning is part of it is physical, part of it is mental. You need patience. You have to, but finally you do it because it's fun. Nobody has to juggle. I mean, unless you're in a circus. But so it was really a challenge, and it's a great lesson in learning that you have to be aware of your body, just like in speaking a new language. If you're Russian and you're learning English, it's different sounds, different your face, your mouth, everything has to it's not only mental, your body has to change. The
it's
juggling,
kind of juggling with the words if you're talking in terms of language learning.
But finally you're doing it because because it's you want to, and it's fun. It's hard, but the result gives you pleasure. So when I succeeded to juggle 3 balls a little bit, even for 10 seconds, it was a great success. I felt really good. I was like, wow, I did it. And it was like, so I think the same thing with somebody who, if you're learning Italian and you succeed to have a conversation in Italian, I think you're going to feel really great. You'll be like, wow, how did I do this? I can't believe I did
For
this.
sure.
So that's, I think, something to think about, is that, again, there's no method. You can have a method, you can have a strategy, but finally it's the pleasure to go through this and succeed. That's just what the juggling lesson.
Totally agree. And probably the juggling man, you had to hint him that if he like gonna juggling. You said that he was a musician. Actually,
he was.
If he gonna playing something and juggling at the same time, he probably gonna make much money.
Well, and finally, before I left Paris, he gave me a gift of 3 juggling balls.
Oh, nice.
Which was very nice. So,
do you still have them?
I did, and then
juggling sometimes.
Unfortunately, because they were rubber, they had so they got burnt. One of them had a little burnt and got a hole. But they were a great memory of this experience of learning something, from scratch, like you said perfectly before, from scratch, right? I mean, I had no experience.
Yeah. So hope you once time you're gonna show me how your skill in this juggling thing. So and
tell me.
Exactly, I agreed on everything that you said, and so jump into that learning process I was talking about, and me saying that it's an important to enjoy. Despite this, at the beginning, as you said, it's hard to combine these 2 things, like an interested and a progress. So it seems to me that likely at the beginning we have to make an effort just to to get over that wall that stops us for start enjoying. So, and this is exactly why I divide the learning process into 3 phases, from which like the first phase is a phase when you have to make this effort, and probably also there are another couple of things that is important in language learning. It's like a systematic approach, and probably this systematic approach will help you to make this effort and break the wall that stops you from enjoying. Then another phase, the second phase, where you start enjoying, but still have to make an effort a little bit to make a progress. And the second phase, the best one, probably when you just enjoying, and you don't have these limits that limit yourself from doing different things that you're interested in English. Let's say when it don't stop you to read books you like and everything. But of course it doesn't mean that you stop learn something new if
Right.
you're just enjoying. You're
Right.
enjoying, but you continue learning something, and it's probably the best thing that we have to get there,
Right.
to this third phase.
And you said it, very, very well, very beautifully, and having worked with you and helping you and teaching you, it's you're very organized and definitely more, methodical. You think about the process, you think about the best way to do it, and I think that works great. And just one thing I want to add is that sometimes we forget that we make a little progress, even micro progress, and sometimes a lot of people give up because they do it for one day, they do it for 1 week, they do it for a month, and they just doesn't feel good. They don't feel they're learning anything, and it's just not a nice experience. So one thing I think is important is to always look and see what little progress you did that moment, that day. Did I learn one word? Well, one word is better than no words. Did I learn a little pattern, a little grammar pattern? Well, step back and notice it. Notice the little because often we think, oh, I have to go from 0 to infinity, from not knowing the language to being a fluent speaker. And I don't think there's an end to fluency. It's not a point. It's some people speak English, but they don't know English as well as William Shakespeare, or Barack Obama. We always have an infinity to go, and that's not a bad thing. It's just every time the joy, the pleasure gets greater, the more bigger, deeper that you experience. So what I wanted to add is always look back and take pleasure from what you did, the progress.
Yeah.
What did I do? And then realize the pleasure gets greater, you're doing a lot of running practice, you're preparing for a marathon, and you're gonna probably feel great when you finish it, but then you're gonna say, wow, I need to have another achievement, another greater pleasure, so it's just things to think about, that there's the micro progress and the pleasure, which just grows.
Yeah, it's probably, I agree. And just a little bit to add is that like once you're enjoying, you can to concentrate on the process, on the path you're going, not just on the goal.
Right. That's a great.
And
yes.
once you concentrate on the process, it means that you concentrate on the on the join or something you're doing. So
Absolutely.
I have another question, but you probably already answered it. But I will still say it because maybe you have something to add. So the next question I had, it was, what do you think is the most important in language learning to be succeed in? So, and it's probably not once we answered
Right.
it, but
Well, I think yes, that's a great question. I think it's believing and knowing that you are already that speaker, that person who speaks English. You're not trying to go someplace alien. It's already there. You're just trying to reach it inside you. That person, if let's say I want to speak Russian, I'm not going to speak Russian like Pushkin, but there's a person inside me who will be that Russian-speaking Toine, and I'm just trying to grow this, make it. And so sometimes if we make the goal too alien, too different from us, we're afraid to reach it. If we make the goal that it's already there, but I'm becoming it, I'm growing that English speaker, I'm growing that Italian speaker in me, it will be more real. It won't be some place that you may never reach. So I think it's just one of the important things to have in your mind, that you're already that person in a way in the future. You're just growing it. You're growing it. It's not some 100 light years away. It's here and you're growing it. So just something I would add to that.
Yeah, I agree. And also for me as well, it's, as you said about this another person who speaks, another language, is kind of not, it's you, but kind of part of you, and which you grow. And when you start learning another new language, you just grow yourself in this way. And then you have in your arsenal a couple of languages, and it's make you richer for sure. And for me, as I said, English is the only foreign language I know. It's also like that, because in English I know when I learn it still, because right now I'm in this kind of progress. I'm not at the beginning, of course. I'm in this phase.
No, you're definitely not
maybe
beginning anymore.
The second phase or the third phase, which I told about. Maybe something in the middle, something between the second and the third phase. But now here's the thing that I also enjoy how I sound in English. I enjoy the jokes. Remember this Californian series you showed me? Yeah, I mean,
you really loved
it.
You really loved it.
This culture thing is also very, very important. It's not just language is not just about words and how you put them together, but also about this culture thing, because people from different countries, they behave differently as well. Right. They have their own traditions, and so they have their own culture. And for sure, these culture things, they help you to start speaking, not just,
right.
Start speaking and to start being, Italian, English,
exactly.
Someone
and
else.
That's the other thing I would add, is that, again, it goes back to pleasure and really liking something. That if you're learning a language where you don't really like the culture, or you're not really have any feeling for it, you're not going to learn the language. But if there is, I'm trying to improve my Russian, and there's things in the Russian life, the Russian culture, the expression, the body language that I find interesting, I like it. This is what pulls you, right? Because finally you will just stop if you don't really like something. It's it's the number one thing. So it doesn't mean that if I want to be an astronaut, I can just go and become an astronaut. But I think, again, it's knowing that it's inside you there. You can almost touch it, and every time, but you said something nice, before about, being aware in the present, what the words you're learning right now, the thing you're reading right now. Don't get lost in the destination. Know that is part of the destination. That feeling now, you can't jump out of the now. You're in the now.
Yeah.
And you have to, if you reject the now and say, well, I'm only happy when I get there, you won't get there. You only get there through the now. So I think it's, you said it very nice. You have to be, you have to be focused in what each part of that experience is good, right? Each part of it is good, And one thing I wanted to say, but don't be afraid when you feel you're making no progress. Sometimes that's when your mind needs to stop, and you don't realize it, but things are happening. And I learned that from a teacher who was, said that sometimes when you feel the biggest frustration, like you feel like you're going backwards, you feel like you actually, it's when there's a big change happening in your mind, and it's like it's a moment of big change, so you're going to a new level in a way. And so you got to give that some space. You can't just keep forcing, you got to give that space. So it's, we're not a 24 hours, 7 day a week, AI.
We're not robots. We're not robots.
So that's something, learners shouldn't be afraid of moments where they feel they need to stop. It's important to take a break. It's important to step back, take your mind away from this. So just something I learned.
Yeah, and the saying of to keep being in the present moment, it's probably the place where had to begin a propaganda and advertising of Stoicism.
Go ahead, please.
They also. No, I'm just joking, It's probably, it's just the same thing that Stoicism teach us, But we probably already said a lot of words here, and I believe that this interview will help and probably motivate our viewers, especially my friends, I believe. I hope so, at least. And probably other people.
You're a great learner yourself, Max, and I think that what makes you great is that you're always thinking about the experience, and you don't just take something because somebody tells you, oh, this is the right method, or you think about it and you try to decide what's best for you, right? I mean, maybe I say to somebody, oh, you should do your vocabulary in the morning, and they try to do that, but it feels it's not good, right? So they have to be aware what's good for them, right? I mean,
and this is exactly the thing I want to say, like in kind of to summarize everything we said, is that it's let's say, if we summarize everything we said and say it one more time again in short, is that firstly you have to to define what you really want to do, and probably there is a key to go further, and then enjoying something. But there is a key to define what you really want to do, not somebody else,
Great.
And so here we come to the end, and there is one more question.
Shoot.
I like. Shoot. Yeah, it's one more question I like a lot. I have to admit I stole it from one Russian podcast that called. I once told you that called "We Are Doomed." In Russian, it's Russian podcast. It's called "We Are Doomed." In Russian, it's sounds like "Мы обречены." And the question they asked every people that they're interviewing, it's so here's the question. Tony, tell me, what is the meaning of life?
Oh, well, it's 42. Of course. The number 42 is the meaning of life. I can't. Well, let's say if I knew the meaning of life, I have special instructions from my superior to not reveal it at the moment. In the near future, I'm going to do a big video show where I will reveal the meaning of life to everyone.
Yeah, but
well,
here
let's
it's
say
like
a little of the meaning is really take pleasure in the people and around you and the life around you, because if you ever see some movie where someone is in an empty room and there's nothing, well, that I think is hell. So we forget how incredible everything around us is. So, Max, thanks for the questions. Did you have any? That was the last question.
yeah, it was the last, and probably if you just maybe you already wished a lot and advice to our viewers, and we said a lot. So as always, it was a pleasure talking with you, and thanks for answering my questions. See you.
Thanks, Max.
See you soon. Thanks, Tom.
Do svidania.
Do svidania. So
we can stop? I'll stop.
Yeah, we can. We can stop.
I can't believe it.